Welcome to part 1 of a multi-part tutorial on using the Effects Pane in Pena. The Effects Pane is this icon on the upper left. And if you've been using our previous tutorials, you've certainly seen us use the Effects Pane before. This tutorial is going to show you how to use the controls within the Effects Pane, but not necessarily how to put good effects together. Other tutorials that follow this will show you that. We open the Effects Pane by tapping on it. You'll notice that in the manual and elsewhere in these tutorials, we have called the Effects Pane the Program Pane sometimes and the Effects Pane sometimes. It's the same thing. Effects are what you add to the Effects Pane, and if you put several effects together, it becomes a program. So either the Program Pane or the Effects Pane is fine. We've opened the Effects Pane by tapping the icon. We close it again by tapping the icon. We can open it and close it by tapping the arrow, open it or close it by tapping any other pane. The Effects Pane, you'll notice, is divided into two sides that look fairly similar. The left side is brush effects, the right side is surface effects. Brush effects are what is applied to your paintbrush as you are painting. If you have no effects, as we have here, there's no effects in our list, then we are painting with color 1 in the control pane, and we can see that by merely going and laying down some paint, and sure enough it's white. We can change that white to a different color. Let's pick a nice pink and paint, and we can see that we are painting with that color. To modify that, we start to place effects into the brush effects pane. You'll notice that the brush effects pane has up to 32 slots. That means you can put up to 32 effects in here and use that to paint at one time. You might use all 32 effects slots, or you might divide the slots into various sets of effects and use some at one time and some at another time. This right-hand side is for surface effects, and this tutorial will not be describing how to use this, except to say that everything I'm going to show you on this left side works identically to the right side. Editing, adding, the effects, everything is identical. The surface effects side of this pane will be described in detail in the Intelligent Canvas tutorial. Let's take a look at the effects pane. We'll notice there's icons on the bottom. These icons on the left are for the brush effects only. These icons on the right are for the surface effects only, and we won't be describing them in this tutorial. These icons in the middle are shared by both sides. To place something into the effects pane, we simply pick a slot and we tap on it, and we get a pop-up which shows us all of the effects we can have. The effects are divided into 6 categories: color sources, procedural sources, color filters, spatial filters, math and logic, and special effects. There's a lot of overlap in these categories. For example, some procedural sources are special effects, some special effects are procedural sources, etc. But we've tried to separate them into areas that sort of make sense. To pick a particular effect, simply find the effect you want in the list, and I'll pick a 4-color gradient. Once I tap on it, it now appears in the first slot. If I start to paint, we can see that I'm painting with the 4-color gradient, and it's being applied all over the screen as I paint. Over to the right of the effect, we see this blue eye, and this is the options pop-up. I tap it, and these are options specific to this effect. Here we can see the upper left-hand corner color, the right-hand corner color, so we have red in the upper left, green in the upper right, blue is in the lower left, and white, if we had painted down there, would have been in the lower right. We see options to fit to brush, and we see options for how this is going to be output. If we turn on fit to brush, and paint, we now see that instead of the gradient being applied to the entire screen, it's applied only to our brush. And again, red is in the upper left-hand corner of the brush, green in the upper right, blue in the lower left, and white in the lower right, just as the options specify. At the bottom of the options pane, we have the ability to preview this effect. What this will do is it will flood the entire screen with that effect, allowing us to see what it looks like. When we're done previewing it, we just simply tap on the screen and our original image comes back. If we have multiple effects in our list, we can preview the program. This will preview all of the effects that are turned on together. to see what that would look like. But right now we only have one effect, so previewing the program will be identical. You'll notice at the top of both sides there is a green check mark, and on surface effects there is a red check mark. Let's just drop another filter in here. Let's drop a special effect, color pinwheel. We now have two effects in here. I can turn off all brush effects by simply doing that. If I do that, we're going to be painting again with our color 1, our nice pink color that we chose. That turned off everything in this list, even though it might still have a green check mark here. Turning it back on, we'll paint. In this case, I'm painting with my second effect, color pinwheel. And here's why. Remember what we said in previous tutorials. Color 1 and color 2 enter the effects system, and they are fed to the very first effect, 4-color gradient. 4-color gradient is going to replace color 1 with the gradient. And then it's going to hand that output to number 2. Number 2 is going to replace that 4-color gradient with the pinwheel. So basically the 4-color gradient is completely being ignored. We can see this by turning off the color pinwheel. Now I tapped that green check mark, made it a red X, and now we're back to painting with our fit to brush gradient. I turn that back on and it overrides that, and now it's become our pinwheel. Why is that? And can we do something about that? Well, the reason is these color mixers down here. This is telling us what to do with this effect, and it's saying it should replace whatever color 1 is and ignore color 2. So what that means is color 2 will pass through this effect and won't be changed. Color 2 is black in our control panel, so it'll remain black. However, color 1 will be replaced by the color pinwheel. If we look at our 4-color gradient options, we see it also is replacing color 1. So if it replaces color 1 and color pinwheel replaces what color 1, then color pinwheel is overriding the 4-color gradient. We can tap on that and change that, for example, to a multiply. In this case, the color pinwheel, oh, I did that for the wrong thing. I did that for the gradient. So let's put that back to replace. Go down to our color pinwheel and set it to multiply. In this case, the 4-color gradient will replace our pink color and will output on color 1. And the color pinwheel will be generated and it will be multiplied against our gradient. When we paint, we can now see that we're painting with something entirely different than what we were painting with before. It is the multiplication of our gradient and the color pinwheel. So you continue to add effects in here. Only effects that have the green check mark will be used when painting. So you can effectively turn an effect on and off and have it skipped over as you paint. Now, what if we wanted to add an effect between these two? Would we have to rewrite these all over again? No. This icon here allows us to change ordering and delete and insert. We tap it to turn it on, tap it again to turn it off, and you'll notice it affects both sides, the left side and the right side, identically. To add a new effect, if I wanted to place effect between 4-color gradient and the color pinwheel, I would simply tap on color pinwheel and an empty slot will be added above it. I can tap again and get 2 empty slots. That very simply allows me to add new effects between existing effects without having to rewrite the entire program. I can delete an effect or even an empty slot by using the minus circle and tapping the delete. There's a shortcut to this as well. When we're out of this mode, if I drag to the left, tap, hold, and drag, I can also delete. And this is a shortcut that allows you to do the deletion without having to open up the modifying icon. If we wanted to add an effect to the very top, again, all I have to do is tap on the first one, it will move down out of the way, allowing me to add an empty effect. I can move ordering around by tapping this icon here. Tap, hold, and drag allows me to move the location of that particular effect. Again, when we're done, tap to get out of that mode. This icon here is very similar to the preview program icon. It does exactly the same thing, but it doesn't require that you're in one of these option panes. Simply tap here to have the current program applied to the entire screen. Tap again to restore the screen. That allows you to see what an effect's going to have before you start painting with it. On the right side here, this icon gives us more capabilities. It allows us to copy our entire brush programs over to the surface side, or copy the surface side back. We can swap or exchange the surface and the brush, or completely clear the brush program, or completely clear the surface program. If we copy the brush to the surface, you can see that it immediately made a copy of it over here. This is useful even if we're not using Intelligent Canvas. For example, since you can put 32 effects in here, you can also put 32 effects in the surface effects. This allows you to use the surface effects side as a palette where you can swap them back and forth, copy them over, allowing you effectively to have 64 effects, so you can only use 32 at a time. Now this is only if you're not using surface effects for Intelligent Canvas. Otherwise you would not use it that way. If we wanted to clear out that surface program, now it's empty. If we wanted to swap surface and brush, this is now over here, swap it back. Very simple on how to do that. In the lower left corner we have two icons. This icon should look very familiar to you because it's identical to our texture pane icon. This is a convenience icon. There's no difference between this icon and that icon, other than if I were to tap the texture pane icon here, it will close the brush pane and I would have to reopen it. Many effects use textures. We come to color sources and we can come down here and pick texture. And we already have a texture in our texture pane. Let's turn off our other effects and flood the screen. There's our texture. Since we have to pick textures, it's very inconvenient to go back here and then reopen, Instead, we can just go down here to manage our textures, tap again to turn that off, and our brush pane stays open. Now make sure when you open this that you don't turn it off by tapping this one. If you do, the brush pane will turn off. But if you tap this one and turn it off down here, it will stay open, and that's much more convenient. To the left of that we have our save load, and this save load is only for brush effects. You'll notice there's another save load over here that's only for surface effects. We tap it and we get a list of existing effects, and we can save a new one. Now let's save our one we just built here. We'll call it A1. And it has been saved. Now I can pick a different one to load it. I'll load this brush program, and you can see now we have completely different. And let's see what that does. So that does this. I could load a different one. Let's look at Crack Metal Framework. And now we're painting with that effect. And this is slow because we're painting in the simulator. This is instantaneous on the actual iPad device. So that allows you to load up and save brush effects. We can also do things like merge. I can say merge this program at the start, and it will add that program to our existing program. Likewise, I can say merge this program at the end, or merge this program before the first uncheck slot. So for example, if I were to uncheck Metallic Cage and say merge our A1 before the first unchecked slot, that texture will be merged and placed right before that 4-color gradient. And that is how we use the effects pane and the controls in the effects pane to build our various effects.